Hey everybody, I'm Glenn,
And I'm Kevin.
and we are two reasonable guys.
That's right.
All right. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the last podcast. This is our second one, even though it took a really long time to get this one uploaded.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah, hopefully we'll do these a little bit more frequently.
Yeah, we'll develop some sort of consistency, once we get our feet wet with all this stuff,
Yeah. So this week we have part one to a two-part. It's our second episode, and we're already doing two-part series. This is how crazy we are.
This is how dedicated we are. This is what dedication looks like. Okay.
There's just too much good stuff. We can't cover it in 1 hour.
And we don't want to
So-
shortchange you guys. That's what this is really all about.
We also really don't know how to shut up, so we probably are going to talk too much about everything.
That too. Yep.
So the topic of this week's podcast, which is part one, is we're going to be talking about the greatest cult films, cult sci-fi and fantasy films of the 1980s. So what does that really mean, cult sci-fi fantasy films? It's basically films that we as sci-fi fantasy geeks tend to all love and rave about and watch over and over again, but they really didn't do that well in the box office, or they really weren't that well received by the general public
Yeah.
when they originally came out.
That's it right there. Wasn't well received by the general public. Kind of like they're like either like niche films, or they just kind of died and then became popular later. Like it was actually, I didn't really know the definition of cult classic until I looked it up, and it made a lot more sense.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, and some of the films on our list, I think most people will probably say are great films, but some of them, but some of them, I think people would argue about.
Yeah, that's true. Listen. That's a fair point, and that's one of the reasons why we wanna get this conversation started. And I don't know. I think there's a lot to say on some of these gems, because I don't know if everybody knows this, but there was a ton of weird sci-fi done in the 80s and even early 90s. But we're gonna focus on the 80s for the purpose of part one and part two. But there was a lot of weird shit. So
I think when we first discussed this topic, I think we were going to do of all time.
Yeah.
But then I think we've got something like 16 movies just in the 1980s.
Yep.
So we're like, there's no way. And we were going to cover all 16 movies in one podcast, but we can't. There's too much to talk about. So, all right. Are you ready to get started?
I'm all set. Let's do this.
All right. Oh, and also we're going to go, just so nobody argues that we picked some weird order based on our favorites, we're just going to go in chronological order.
Yep.
So our first film is Flash Gordon from 1980.
Yes. Oh, man. This is one of my favorites.
Is this one of your favorite films of all time, or just
No,
one of your favorites
no.
on this list?
It's one of my favorites on this list. I don't know about all time, but it's listen, a lot of these movies they represent a lot of nostalgia, right? So I'm going to say that quite frequently, one of my favorites. Cuz
and
that's
that's the thing. We're going to give. I enjoy this movie a lot as well. It's not one of my favorites. I enjoy it a lot, but yeah, our opinion and most geeks' opinions of these films are based on they're through that sort of nostalgia filter. So they're looked upon more fondly than they would be if you were just looking at these things critically. So for me, and let's do the tale of the tape. So the budget of this film in 1980 was $20 million. It only made $27 million in the box office. So that is absolutely a flop. I mean, that is a box office bomb. That's not good numbers.
I feel like $20 million in the 80s is a decent amount of money too for like a schlocky sci-fi film.
I think so too. I think looking at the other budget numbers of our other films, I think this was a lot of money to be spent on a film back then.
Yeah.
And the weird thing is, let's look at the cast. We have Sam Jones, which most people probably know from the Ted movies, as sort of playing himself because they love Flash Gordon.
Because they love Flash Gordon, right? So they know him
Right.
from Flash Gordon. This guy, this is what he does.
And he might actually be more famous in pop culture for the Ted movies than he is for Flash Gordon.
Yeah,
arguably. I could be wrong.
Well, the audiences for both movies may not overlap. You know.
Right.
Yeah.
We also have Max von Sydow as Ming the Merciless.
R.I.P.
He's
True. Like that guy's awesome. I mean, he's like I would consider him almost like an A-list actor. Like that. There's a couple of A-list actors on here.
He's one of those. He's like a British character actor, but he's one of those dudes that if he's in a film or a TV series or a TV show, he makes it better just because he's in it.
Sure.
All right. We have Melody Anderson.
I don't know who that is.
Exactly. One of your favorites, Brian Blessed as Hawkman.
Fucking Brian Blessed, baby.
Then we have Topol.
I mean, listen, the guy's got one name.
But every time I hear Topol, and this dates me, there was a commercial back in the 80s for Topol, the smoker's tooth polish. So every time I hear this guy's name, I think of the smoker's tooth polish.
Everything about that statement is funny.
Exactly. It's
the smoker's tooth polish. What the hell is that?
It's one of those dumbass 80s commercials. I guess it was if you had brown teeth from, sucking down too many Pall Malls.
Yeah. All right. Fair. That's fair. Yeah.
You would use this to brighten your teeth. And speaking of brightening your teeth, Timothy Dalton.
T-Dalt, right? Come on.
He's T-Dalt. I mean, he's my, and this will get a lot. He's my favorite James Bond. I'm sure everyone will sigh and gasp when they hear that.
Really?
Yeah, but he's my favorite James Bond, and I wish he had done more Bond films. He only did 2. But Timothy Dalton plays. What does he play in this?
He plays I forgot his name. He plays that Prince.
Right. Yeah. He kind of looks like Robin. He looks like Robin Hood Men in Tights.
Like space. Like Space Robin Hood, right?
Yeah. He lives on that planet with the weird log thing with the creature in it.
Oh yeah. Love that scene.
All right. So, and the one thing we have to mention, obviously, in musical soundtrack by Queen. That's probably the biggest thing.
Absolutely.
This film.
I believe it's one of 2 movies that Queen did the musical soundtrack for.
Well, 2 movies that Queen did the soundtrack for that appear on our list, which is a hint, if anybody knows. I don't know if they might have done other films.
I don't know, but I know the 2 movies that we're talking about. I believe the music was primarily done by Queen, right?
Yes,
I'm sure
correct.
they've done like there's been Queen songs on movie soundtracks, just period. But I feel like there's only 2 that they went all in and said Queen's doing the soundtrack.
Yeah, that they did the soundtrack for,
and that's a big plus for me because I love Queen.
Well, yeah,
so it's always gonna like this movie will always be a few pegs higher on my like internal ranking chart just because Queen is there.
Yes, I agree. Mm-hmm.
All right, so big question: was this a good movie?
Yes, I absolutely think. Well, no, I mean I love this. Well, I love this movie, but I don't know if it is a good movie. Okay, it's not a good movie. I'll be very, very honest here. Okay. I think there is not much of a plot. It's basically, hey, we were on a rocket for some reason, and now we were captured by these aliens, and it turns out they want to destroy the Earth, and we have to stop them from destroying the Earth. There's really, it's very generic. Again, this film is based on the serial films, the serial of the 30s and 40s.
Right. Yeah.
There's not a lot going on here.
I think the strength of this movie lies in that it does not take itself very seriously. Like, it knows exactly what it is. Like I mean, and that scene that we just talked about with Timothy Dalton as Space Robin Hood, and they're doing that thing where they're sticking their hands in the log and there's some sort of poisonous creature in there. Flash Gordon's using football analogies, right? It's just very cheesy, and there's cheesy moments everywhere in this film. Everywhere. But they work because the movie is cheesy, you know?
It's okay. I mean, granted, let's just say the film, I don't know if the film was really trying to not take itself seriously. I don't feel like it's...
You know what? I don't think it was, but it like, I think that's one of the ingredients in the cult classic formula. Like, the movie was trying to be this thing, and then it just ended up being a joke, but everybody got it, you know?
Right, but that's the charm of it, and I think that's why me and you like it, and most, you know...
I think that's where the Rotten Tomatoes score comes from, you know? Like, 80%. That's not bad. That's actually fantastic for a movie like this.
It does, yes, you know? But I think yes, I think it's a good score, and I think that rank is there because of fans like us. But I think the reality of it is Sam Jones can't act. Melody Anderson, who I've never heard from before or again, just like Sam Jones,
right,
cannot particularly act. It is not Timothy Dalton at his best. It is not Max von Sydow at his best. The special effects, it's 1980. So to put that in perspective, Empire Strikes Back
was what, 81?
Was 1980.
Oh, okay.
And Flash Gordon was 1980, and Flash Gordon looks like it was made in 1971.
Yeah.
So, and the plot is it's a bunch of scenes put together in hopes that people might enjoy the eye candy and the fun of it, but it's not really a good film.
It's not. It's actually, if you look at like the way the dialogue and the plot and stuff, it's not a good movie at all. It really isn't. I love it, but it's not a well-made film. You know what I'm saying?
Again, I think we love more or less every film on this list, but I think we will both agree that Flash Gordon is not a good film.
No. Okay.
All right. We're ready to move on?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So the next film or films, and we're going to put them together just so we can talk about them at the same time. So
I think it's very appropriate to do that, and you'll see why.
No, I agree. So we have Evil Dead, which is 1981, and we're going to talk about also Evil Dead 2 from 87. Evil Dead 2, for those of you who have not seen these films, Evil Dead 2 is not a sequel to Evil Dead. It is just a remake of Evil Dead with 10 times the budget.
Yeah.
So Evil Dead was made in 1981 by Sam Raimi, directed by Sam Raimi, who I probably most known for the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, or is he known for other things that I'm just not thinking of?
He's known for this, but yeah, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, Quick and the Dead. Those are the only things I can think of off the top of my head.
Right. Yeah. So Evil Dead 81, budget was $350,000. It was basically it's like a independent film, right? Like Evil Dead 81 is to Sam Raimi as Clerks is to Kevin Smith.
Sure. Yeah,
right?
Sure. Yeah.
So $350,000 film. It made $2.6 million in the box office, which, I mean, that's a success.
Yeah.
I would say. It's certainly not a flop. It made a hell of a lot more than it was made for.
Yeah.
This shocked the heck out of me. Rotten Tomatoes score, 95%.
Dude, it's a good horror film. I mean,
it's
Stephen King gave this his seal of approval.
And, well, that's amazing. That's, you know. And so, all right, so now Evil Dead 2, budget of $3.5 million. So is my math correct? That's 10 times more than $350,000, or am I a moron?
No, I think you're there.
But it made $5.9 million in the box office. So I wouldn't call it a flop, but I wouldn't really call it a success.
It's like middle of the road, right?
It was okay. It was, you know.
Okay.
Now Evil Dead 2 Rotten Tomatoes scores 97%. So it did even better than Evil Dead 1 or Evil Dead the original.
I think it's because like they took Evil Dead and they again, they dumped more money into it, and they expanded the storyline, and they injected some of that like Raimi, Bruce Campbell humor, and they just made it. It was still a horror flick, but they made it like a widely a more likable film. You know what I mean? Like Evil Dead 1 was like straight horror, indie style. You know, like it was low budget, obviously.
It was. I mean, I agree with you. It was more of a traditional horror movie, and didn't have the sort of, I guess, signature, because it wasn't developed yet, the signature Bruce Campbell schlocky style.
I think he started to cultivate it here. Little side note: if anyone is really interested on the story of Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, among other Bruce Campbell projects, read his book If Chins Could Kill. It's an older book, but it goes into the story about how they made Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, and it's pretty interesting. If this piques your interest at all, check it out.
Yeah, I haven't read that, but it sounds like it'd be a lot of fun to read.
Yeah, no, it just talks about, I think Evil Dead 1 was made in Michigan, where they all lived and grew up and stuff like that. It's cool. It's it's a cool little story.
But here's my thing about these films. Again, I agree with you. I think Evil Dead 1's more of a traditional horror movie, and I think it stands on its own. I think it's a good horror movie. I think it's one that horror movie fans should watch and would like. So I would say that film is a good movie. Evil Dead 2, to be fair, I think is, for lack of a better term, a stupider movie because of all the wacky sort of, laughing deer heads, and Bruce Campbell lays it on really thick.
Right.
But that being said, Bruce Campbell is, to me and to you and to many, he's the king of cult films. He is a personality. There's never been anybody like Bruce Campbell before.
Yes.
There's never going to be somebody like him after. Yep. He is like an American icon. It's like, Jesse James, Al Capone, Bruce Campbell, Charlie Chaplin. You know what I mean?
I believe the word you're looking for is iconic. He's iconic.
He's a living legend. He's just, nobody's like him. So it is Bruce Campbell that makes the Evil Dead films, and makes, Army of Darkness and really Bubba Hotep and any of the stuff that he's in. You watch it because Bruce Campbell's in it. He's the draw. He's the lightning rod.
I love
you know
that
what
movie.
I mean?
I love Army of Darkness. I love it. We could do a whole episode just talking about that movie. I love that movie.
We could actually. I just rewatched Army of Darkness. I would say about a week and a half ago, and it is a very stupid movie.
Yeah, but
it really is.
It's so funny because it's just like the delivery and like the he's such a bonehead in the movie, but it's great. It's heavily quotable.
Exactly.
It's just,
not to get too off topic, but
sure.
It is in Army of Darkness in which the Ash character blooms to exactly who the Ash character is, and that's the Ash character that permeates through the recent television series. So, I mean, that's where Ash was defined.
Right.
As sort of the ladies' man, the misogynist, the guy who stumbles into success even though he's completely screwed up. It's just it's an iconic character. So, all right, so I guess we would both agree that Evil Dead is absolutely a good movie. The original, right? 81.
Sure.
Evil Dead 2, like I said, I love it, but I'm going to say it's not a good movie. That it's kind of stupid. Would you agree or disagree?
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say that it's a good movie, just not as good as the first one technically.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the first movie was a well-made indie horror flick, and the second one was it was not as good, but I still think it was very good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Okay.
All right. Our third film is Heavy Metal from 1981.
Oh God, this movie. This movie's so weird. But
movie is very weird.
But
now, here's
lovable.
what surprised me. $9.3 million budget. I mean, I guess it has to be because it's animation. For those of you who don't know, Heavy Metal is 100% animated. Basically what it is, I'm not sure that it's like about 5 or 6 different animated shorts in a different animation style, loosely linked together.
Yeah, no, they're linked
to sort of be related.
Yeah,
but loosely.
They rotate around like a central quote unquote plot, I think.
It's just the big ball of evil.
The orb, right? Yeah.
There's this orb that's evil that's basically telling this story to a little girl that discovers it of like all the different ways it's like done evil.
Right.
In flashback, you see all these different times where the orb was involved in stuff, and that stuff was like a lot of people got killed or blah 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 blah. But it's just to show different animation styles.
Sure.
So in the box office it did $20.1 million.
So more than doubled it, right? That's
absolutely good. So that's a success. I mean, that's a big success. But here's the funny thing: Rotten Tomatoes score 60%. So it is not a generally well liked film.
So here's my thought. I have 2 thoughts on that. One, I think the bulk of that budget was music. Because look at the people they got. I mean, look at the musicians they got to play, or the songs.
In essence,
it's like
and this
crazy.
could have been the success of this film because I think MTV started in 81, and the movie Heavy Metal is basically, I guess, a 90-minute music video because
sure, yeah.
All right, so I'll run through the list. Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, Cheap Trick, Devo, Donald Fagen, who's one half of Steely Dan, Grand Funk Railroad, Sammy Hagar, Journey, Nazareth, and Stevie Nicks. So that's a lot of big rock stars and groups of the time that lent their talent and music to this film.
Yeah.
And then on the weird flip side, a lot of Canadian comedians doing the voices of the animated characters. So we had John Candy, Eugene Levy, or Levy, depending on which part of the country you're from, Joe Flaherty, and Harold Ramis, who is also Egon Spengler from Ghostbusters.
Yes.
So a lot of the SCTV Canadian dudes doing the voices. I don't know if this film is made in Canada. My guess is there's got to be some reason why all those dudes are attached to it. But
yeah, it could have been. But I think the other part of that Rotten Tomato score is that I don't know. People shit on animated films.
Well, there is, yes.
You know?
And I think the reason why this is a very culty film, and I think the reason why a lot of us sort of like it, or those who were preteen or teens, well, 81, I wasn't a preteen or teen, and neither were you.
No.
But I discovered this film, I guess, preteen or teen, because that's kind of when you're attracted. Let's put it this way: there's a lot of big animated titties in this movie.
Yeah,
a lot of big animated titties in it. So
let's get all the cards out on the table here.
and Heavy Metal, the magazine Heavy Metal, was basically the reason why most people bought Heavy Metal. Is there was a lot of there's a lot of titties in it, but they got away from it. They got away with it because it was drawn. It wasn't photography.
Right.
Every woman drawn in Heavy Metal and in this film, their measurements are like 58, 16, 45.
Oh, they're all comic book women, right? They're just
but ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculously proportioned. There you go. Yeah. Perfect.
And I think that's one of the reasons why people love this movie, because I think they remember this film helping push them over the line for puberty. And so they fondly remember the film because of that.
Well, look, it's almost like a gateway drug, right? It's animated, so it's like cartoons, but then you've got great music. You've got Sabbath,
exactly,
Sammy Hagar. You've got this great stuff, and then you've got titties.
I think that's what it is.
It's like the perfect storm.
I think the people making this look, we're gonna have lots of titties. And we're going to have lots of rock and roll.
Yeah.
The kids will love it.
Yeah.
We'll sell a lot of tickets. And guess what happened? They sold a
lot
of fucking movie tickets.
Yeah, they did. It worked. It was absolutely. Whoever was the brain trust behind that, genius. Because
the director was Gerald Potterton.
I've never heard of. Never heard of that guy.
Whatever. Oh, and the one thing we have to mention here is the reason why I love this is the animated sequence that has like the taxi driver in the future, which I honestly felt the people who made The Fifth Element literally loved that animated short and copied that for Fifth Element, to have Bruce Willis be that in the floating cab. I really feel that was an homage to that animated short. That animated short was so cool. I wanted that to have its own movie.
I think that might have been the best one, to be honest.
And it was very Blade Runner-esque too.
Oh yeah, yep.
So yeah, that was my favorite.
I would love to know if that's true. If they were like, hey, remember the cab scene in Heavy Metal? Let's do that with Corbin Dallas. I wonder if that was ever on the table.
I mean, we should look it up, but I would guarantee if you asked the people who either wrote or produced or directed, Fifth Element, they would say absolutely. Luc Besson?
My man, Luc Besson?
Yeah, he was into it. I'm telling you. And if he wasn't into it, whoever did the effects was like, oh, remember that Heavy Metal thing? I'm going to kind of design the cab to sort of be reminiscent of. It absolutely played a part.
It was some dude in a Blue Oyster Cult shirt like, hey, man, I know what to do.
Exactly.
Don't worry about it.
In between joints?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So, I'm going to get right out to it and say that just overall, this movie's crap. It's not a good movie at all. Do you think it's a good film?
I don't think so. I think I mean, I like the story. I could appreciate the story, how it's like different styles of animation, different. It's almost like pictures on a theme,
Right.
But it's just, I think it relied too much on the music and animated titties. Two things that I will never ever shoot down. But let's tell it like it is here. It's not a great movie.
Yes. All right. I agree. All right. Our next film is Escape from New York, also 1981. John Carpenter, Kurt Russell collab, one of several. Budget was $6 million. Box office $25.2 million. So
success.
Sweeping box office success. This was not a bomb in any sense. So
no.
I guess technically we may not be able to classify it as a cult classic because it was not a bomb. But even if it made a lot of money, I don't think a lot of people were into this film when it came out. I mean, I guess enough because it made a lot of money. But I feel like this film got more popular 10, 15 years later. Right?
Yes.
Like it wasn't as popular as when it came out. Rotten Tomatoes score 86%. Fantastic. Like we said, Kurt Russell, Lee Van Cleef, who, if you remember from all those spaghetti westerns with Clint Eastwood, Donald Pleasance, who played the President of the United States, a British actor who is probably most famous for playing Blofeld in a couple of Bond movies. Ernest Borgnine. This is the weirdest cast. Like, if you read this cast, you'd be like, these are just random people put together.
It is a very weird cast. It
right?
gets weirder as you read more.
Yeah, Ernest Borgnine, Isaac Hayes. Oh, okay. All right, so Chef's in it. Adrienne Barbeau. Speaking of large animated titties, it's a good segue.
It is. It's perfect.
Adrienne Barbeau, probably most well known for her afro and large breasts. She is a good actress, though. I will be fair. She probably got typecasted because when people needed someone with very big boobs, they would put her in a film. But she is a good actress. And then Harry Dean Stanton, who, Harry Dean Stanton. I mean, he's going to appear on this list again in another film. But of course, my favorite Harry Dean Stanton moment of all time is from Red Dawn. Avenge me! That's the shittiest Harry Dean Stanton impression, but
I
was
got
my
it.
favorite.
My personal favorite Harry Dean Stanton moment is probably the Green Mile.
Oh, I can't. Why can I not remember who Harry Dean Stanton was in the Green Mile?
He was like the janitor, and he had like a few scenes. He had like 2 or 3 scenes, and they were all funny because it's Harry Dean Stanton.
And he's kind of a wisecracking janitor kind of a scenario. Yeah,
Yep.
I remember that. All right, so Escape from New York. Oh, for those of you who don't know the plot, basically, I mean, Kurt Russell plays the iconic character of Snake Plissken, the eye-patched, court-martialed military guy who's being sent to jail. Jail in this film is Manhattan Island, which has gotten so overrun with crime, they just basically walled it off, and it's now a prison. They just drop prisoners in it, and they just roam freely.
Right, open-air prison, essentially.
Right. So basically, Donald Pleasance, he's the president. He's on Air Force One. His Air Force One has trouble. They have to eject him. They eject him in this giant work from orc egg thing. And he lands in Manhattan, and now they want to send Kurt Russell in. He's the only man who could do the job. They want to send Kurt Russell in to sort of rescue the president and bring him back so he could be at some BS conference and blah, 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 whatever. It's just an excuse for Kurt Russell with a machine gun to run around Manhattan and shoot people. And at some point, Isaac Hayes, he runs, I guess, where the area of Manhattan that the president's in. So he's like, I don't know, he's like the master blaster of his domain. And Ernest Borgnine plays a taxi driver. I don't know why Ernest Borgnine's in Manhattan.
Yeah, I don't.
He commit a crime? I don't. I don't know. It just
seems like he's just there. I don't know what he's Ernest Borgnine, right? Like
right. But it's just your standard punch, fight, shoot, action-y kind of a thing. I think it's a good movie. I think it's actually pretty cool.
Oh yeah, no, I agree with you. This is it's good. I think it's poignant. You know, you've got like a statement on society. You've got Kurt Russell, right? You've got like, I'm going to go so far as to say the military and prison industrial complex, if you really wanted to get political with it. But
it sounds like you wrote a term paper on this.
I didn't. I think this movie can be a lot deeper than just Kurt Russell punching and shooting people. Not that that's a bad thing. That's one of my favorite things ever. But I feel like if you really wanted to find a theme to this movie, I think it's really. I think it's a deeper movie than it would have you believe. I like it. I think it's a good movie.
No, I think it's a good movie too.
I think I got to rewatch it. I haven't seen this in a while. I think I need to rewatch this.
I haven't seen it in a bit, but I probably watched. I think I watched it maybe not too long ago. Maybe a month ago. I caught it. Again, these are the kind of films you catch on TV and then you just watch it.
Right.
Because you're like, oh, I like this movie. So you just watch it. It happens all the time. It's probably I've seen most of these films, 20, 30, 40, 50 times because that's what ends up happening.
Yep.
But yeah, I would agree. I think it's a good movie. And I think it's the type of post-apocalyptic theme that has been used and abused in hundreds of films after this poorly.
Yeah.
But they did it the first time, and they did it really well. And I think it's been imitated, and many times not well. So, yeah, I would say it's a good movie. Okay, our next film is Time Bandits from 1981.
Oh, man.
Terry Gilliam.
Terry Gilliam. Oh, man. As if we didn't have enough weird shit on this list.
This is a weird movie. I can't believe these numbers. $5 million budget. $42.4 million box office.
That blows my mind. Are we sure that's not a mistake? Because that seems way higher.
This is what it was on the internet. It must be true.
Must be true. Yep.
Right. But I mean that's what I found. Maybe it's wrong. If it's wrong, put in the comments that we're wrong and put the right number. But this is what I found with my half-ass research. Rotten Tomatoes score. 89%, respectable.
Yeah.
So yeah, Terry Gilliam joint. Obviously, we get Michael Palin, John Cleese, because whenever the Pythons do anything, they gotta put each other in it. I think they all must have signed the same deal with the devil, or have pictures of each other with a goat or something, because they're always in each other, or they just like each other. I don't know why I'm being so dark about it.
Dude, it could just be it could just be friendship.
It could be. There might not be,
defaulting to goats and shit. It could just be friendship.
Exactly. I think John Cleese has photos of people.
He might.
He just seems like that kind of guy.
Yeah,
but
totally proper. But he's got all the
Exactly.
goods on everybody.
what I love about this film is all of a sudden Sean Connery's in it. Like, you're not expecting it.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Yep.
And he's just charming, and he's just happy to be there. You know, he got paid a lot of money, and he's just great to do it. By the way, this was one of those movies where George Harrison did the music for this film, and I got to do the math. I don't know when Life of Brian came out, but when the Pythons couldn't get Life of Brian made, George Harrison put up the money. I think that was before. I think that was absolutely before Time Bandits. So I think they had a nice relationship.
Wow.
And when Gilliam made this, I guess George Harrison did the music for it. Who else is in this? Shelley Duvall, Catherine Helmond of Who's the Boss fame.
What other movie was she? I mean, she was probably in a bunch of other movies, but
I don't know.
She shows up on screen, you're like, holy shit! It's Mona.
Exactly.
What? Like what?
But this was pre-Mona. This film.
It is pre-Mona, right?
Yeah. David Warner, who
I love David Warner.
He's the quintessential British character actor that's in everything, and you always happy to see him. He's in Tron, he's in Titanic.
Yep.
And obviously, big Star Trek fans. He's in the Four Lights episode where he plays the Cardassian. Yes. So we love him for that. Kenny Baker, who's known for being inside a tin can.
Yep.
His most notable performance is inside a tin can playing R2-D2, but he is R2-D2.
Yep.
But that's the other thing. The other folks that are in this film, there's like 6 or 7 or 8 little people, and it's basically all of the top little people. So anytime you needed a little person in your film in the 80s, you called one of these dudes.
That was them.
They were in it. And probably for the first time for many of them, and maybe the last time for many of them, not under heavy makeup or not in a tin can, as unfortunately most little people were used in films back then, as monsters and animals and robots and aliens and stuff like that. So I'm sure they were all thrilled, and most of them good actors. Let's be honest.
Everyone did a great job, and that the little crew that they had, the running crew that they had. No, Billy Barty though.
Yeah, Billy Barty was not. You know why? Because they had to pay everyone else. If Billy Barty was in it, it would have been Billy Barty only, because they would have had to give him the Billy Barty money.
Well, Billy Barty and his sidekick.
So they were like, you could have Billy Barty, or you can have these other 8 little people for the same price. And they're like,
that was like with Legend. Legend was like Billy Barty and like one, maybe 2 other little people, because Billy Barty needed that Billy Barty money.
Right, and I don't know the name, but now that you mention it, because when you said Billy Barty, when you think of little people, you think Billy Barty, you think of Warwick Davis.
Yeah.
Obviously, both Billy Barty and Warwick Davis were in Willow. But one of the dudes that's one of the little people from Time Bandits is also in Willow. I don't remember the character. You probably will. He was like the head political dude, like the mayor or the...
Wait, Burglecut? The big guy?
I'm pretty sure Burglecut is one of the little people in Time Bandits. You're going to have to look him up, but I'm pretty sure he's in it.
That's a deep cut. I mean, not so deep, because, little people in the 80s, but...
Right. Oh, and then for those of you who don't know the plot of this film, it's very Alice in Wonderland. There's a kid who's sort of dragged into another world. I don't want to say it's another world because it's our world, but they're traveling through time. Although there are some time portals they go through, but then it's all mythological, so I don't really... Again, it's Terry Gilliam. He doesn't have to explain anything.
Yeah.
But basically, all these little people, they work for God, making trees and shrubs, like in his God workshop. And God has a map that has all these portals through time. And they steal the map because they figure it's a great way to make money. They can go to different time periods and steal stuff and get rich and be thieves. And then this boy, this, 11-year-old English boy gets caught up in their nonsense through time. And it's just their misadventures as they fall in and out of time portals. And they're on the Titanic, and they're, in ancient Greece with Sean Connery, who plays King Agamemnon. And basically David Warner plays... What does he play? He plays...
His name
Evil.
is Evil.
He's not evil. The devil. He's evil.
He's just the concept of evil.
Right.
Yeah.
And Evil wants the map because if he has the map, he could take over time and space in the universe. And of course, God wants the map back because it's his map, and he doesn't want, the little people to be causing mischief all over time. And I enjoy this movie. All Terry Gilliam movies and most Python movies are a series of sketches loosely linked together to try to form a plot. Mm-hmm. So you know what you're going to get going into it. I think it's a good film. My biggest complaint is the ending, which I won't ruin. But again, I think most Python movies, they don't have endings. They just stop. They just, all right, we're done, and we just roll credits. And this film kind of has that rug pulled out from under you ending. But other than that, it's definitely an enjoyable watch. It's just you're going to feel a little shortchanged, I think, when it's over.
I agree. All of Terry Gilliam's movies. Ones that we were one of which we were talking about before we started the podcast was The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, and it's the same thing. It's like a series of skits, and then that ending wasn't bad. I'm not a big fan of the way that Time Bandits ended because it's just kind of like, you're right, it's kind of stopped.
Right. Oh, and I forgot to add, Ian Holm plays Napoleon in Time Bandits. For those of you who don't know, Ian Holm plays the what do you call the I want to say replicant, but in Alien he's the artificial doctor, Ash, right? Ash. The artificial doctor who malfunctions.
He's also, of course, Bilbo, he plays, right? Bilbo Baggins.
He was in Fifth Element, which we mentioned before.
What the hell is his name? Cornelius?
Sounds right.
Something. Father's. Damn it.
He was like a monk or something. Some weird space monk.
Yeah, like space priest. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, if you talk about weird movies, that movie, if you take a step back and look at it, it's kind of weird. But
yeah. But we're gonna say Time Bandits is a good movie. Most people would like it.
It's a good movie for what it is, right? Like it's a series of sketches. They're all very well done. Definitely got some British humor in there. Some Gilliam Python-esque humor. And if you like that style of film, this is a very good film. And even if you don't, it's entertaining.
It is I think it's a fun romp, and it's so different and interesting that most people, I think, would enjoy and be happy that they saw it.
Yeah, especially as far as like 80s fantasy flicks go, it's a quintessential.
Right.
Quintessential film.
I agree. All right, our next film is our second John Carpenter, Kurt Russell joint, The Thing from 1982. Budget $10 million, box office $25.2 million. That's respectable.
Yeah, no, another success. Rotten
Tomatoes 84%. Without digging. I mean, if you haven't seen this film,
watch it.
It's kind of like a horror sci-fi, I guess. It's a little mix and match. A huge cast of ensemble of character actors. Basically, it's a bunch of people, scientists, I guess, that work at this remote base in Antarctica, isolated from all of civilization, and then this creature infiltrates it, and wild times ensue as they try to find it, hunt it, kill it.
It's basically like a body snatcher, and so
it is.
The central theme is like you can't trust anybody. You don't know what the hell's going on. I think it's a great movie. Well done. Has some of my favorite actors, especially of the 80s. Kurt Russell, Keith David. You even got Wilford Brimley in there. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Richard Dysart. Richard Dysart was in L.A. Law, I think. Right?
I know the name. I know the name. I probably know the name from this movie. I just don't know anything else about the guy.
Right. And then the music, I was surprised. Ennio Morricone.
I wouldn't have gotten the music. That.
Yeah, for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, he did the music.
I wouldn't have guessed that. I mean, the music is very good. It's very appropriate. It's got that eerie. It fits the theme.
It's not very Ennio Morricone. I'm like a big soundtrack movie score kind of guy. I mean, he was the guy that did the wah wah wah. I'm doing that. That's awful, but whatever. But he did that famous sort of Western theme that they abuse. And there's also a theme that they put in every TV commercial now that he did, which is also from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But I think that's probably what he's the most famous for. I think he also did the music for The Untouchables.
Ooh.
That was a cool movie with what do you call it? With I can't think of names right now. What's his name?
You talking about the one in the late '80s, early '90s, like Kevin Costner, Untouchables?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Cool. Kevin Costner, Robert De Niro.
De Niro is Al Capone. I like that movie.
Yeah. No, I do. I love that movie too. But the music is also good for that movie too.
Very good. Yeah, absolutely.
But I would say this is, I would say, probably one of the great horror sci-fi movies of all time. Like if you made a list of,
yep.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think, and it could be John Carpenter's best film. Would you agree?
Yes. I'm gonna bite. Yes. I think it is his best film. There is another film that we will not discuss in this part that I like more, but that is heavily laden with bias. So, and I'm not that big of a horror film.
Yeah, I'm not talking about
person,
our
but
favorites.
I think this movie is a very well done movie. So
yes.
Yeah, I think it might be his best movie.
Yeah, I think so, and I think most people. If you got 100 people to watch every one of his films, I think most of them would probably rate this one as the highest, or the best.
Yeah,
and
this movie's also it's also pretty high on the quotability scale, and it's got a lot of practical effects. I think this movie's great.
Yeah, the one thing we didn't talk about, which we have to, is the insane practical effects in this film.
It's my favorite. I love practical effects, and these guys nail it.
They do really good. They still hold up. I mean, there's stuff in this. There's weird, twisted effect, but they're just so well done. The creature is just, well, it's not really a creature. Again, it morphs and it's
but
weird.
It's like this, like Cronenberg. Like it looks fantastic, and it's creepy as fuck. There it is. It's just it's a creepy thing, and they pull it off. If this movie was made now and it was done in CG, it would look like shit.
You're right. They would try too hard.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah. No, great film. All right, our next film, which there's not going to be any arguments over, but it needs to be on this list.
Yes.
Is Blade Runner from 1982. $28 million film. Huge budget. Box office only $32.9 million. So that's technically a flop. That's not good. It basically made what it cost. That's not good.
Did you ever see the theatrical cut of this? I
just watched it.
The theatrical cut?
Oddly enough, I watched The Thing yesterday again. Not because we were doing this today, but just because I love the movie.
Sure, yeah.
And I just watched the is it the theatrical? No, the director's cut, the ultimate. I watched the one that didn't have the narration in it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the theatrical cut is the one with that noir style narration. Which I wasn't a fan of. I think I saw it once. I think I saw that cut once, and it was the reason why it took me so long to watch the movie again in like the ultimate or the director's. I can't remember which one I watched after that, but it was much better.
I to be honest, I never saw whatever the ultimate cut or the direct, whatever it is, the one without the narration. Never saw it before. I love both of them. And after I finished watching the one without the narration, I was sitting there going, do I like this one better than the one that's narrated? I honestly couldn't really say yes or no. I loved them both. I think it works both ways. I didn't feel shortchanged by either of them. I can see why someone might prefer one to the other, but I enjoyed it both ways, I think. I guess the one thing about the non-narration film is the one without the narration is basically saying the audience is smart. They can figure all of this out without the narration, which is basically just exposition trying to explain stuff. About how the future is in this movie and why things work the way they work.
Right.
You don't need it. I could follow it. I could feel like you could follow it without the narration. You don't need your handheld. I'm sure that's why the narration was put in, to try to make the film more accessible. But I think it works both ways. Oh, the music. One thing we have to mention, the music by Vangelis. I love the soundtrack. No, I love it's Vangelis. I thought it was like I always thought it was like Vangelis, like because he's right. It sounds like it should be Vangelis.
Yeah,
but I think it's Vangelis. I think I read somewhere that's how you say it.
I'm pretty sure it's Vangelis.
I mean, he did the theme for Chariots of Fire, which everybody knows, which is overused. He's done a lot of soundtracks, but I personally feel the soundtrack to this film is a fucking masterpiece. I love it.
It is. It
but
ties,
everything about this film.
It ties this movie together very, very well.
But everything, it is literally the perfect movie. As far as sci-fi goes, it's
yeah.
And again, it's the film that every film after tries to copy. It was the first.
Well, it defined a genre. You know what I mean? Like it even got, like I even think that this movie took influence from William Gibson, because Gibson, and you guys probably know who Gibson is. He's written Neuromancer and Burning Chrome, and he's got characters like Molly Millions. The movie Johnny Mnemonic was based on a Gibson short story. But his stuff, I mean, The Matrix features heavily, and that's where The Matrix came from. Like Gibson defines cyberpunk, and Gibson's early work had a very, very film noir feel. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the theatrical cut of this movie was very noir-esque. I think Gibson and I think Ridley Scott was heavily inspired by William Gibson, and through both of their efforts, they gave birth to a genre.
Yeah, I mean this. This is the what do they call it? This is the lightning rod. This is what all sci-fi has been trying to emulate since it came out. The effects, they still hold up. It looks like it was made yesterday. I don't know how these guys made this film in '82, and it literally looks like it was made yesterday.
It does. It looks spectacular. It does. It looks really, really good.
Amazing. The cinematography, the lighting, we did mention Ridley Scott directed this film. Obviously directed Alien, so many other great films. Everything about this film is perfect. Obviously Harrison Ford, Rutger. Everything about this film is great. No one's going to be convinced by us that it's a great film. Everybody listening to this podcast already knows it is. If you don't like Blade Runner, there's something horribly wrong with you, and you should go get checked out. Yeah. Something is wrong with you.
You just don't have good taste. If you don't like Blade Runner, right, you don't have good taste. Or you just have you're just totally adverse to sci-fi.
You're like that. There was a guy I met once, and we were talking music, and the Beatles comes up, and then everybody, you're talking about the Beatles, and then of course you say, well, everybody loves the Beatles, so I don't know why.
Yeah.
And he goes, and this guy goes, I'm not really a huge fan of the Beatles. I'm like, you don't really like the Beatles? No, I don't really. I'm like, what? Well, what is your favorite band? He's like Huey Lewis and the News.
Yeah. Yes.
So, long story short, I pushed him in front of a moving car.
I love that.
No, I didn't, but I should have.
I'm not really into the Beatles, but hey, Huey Lewis.
But the fucked up thing is, and look, this, no offense to Huey Lewis and the News.
Oh, dude, I love Huey Lewis, but
not a bad band. But could he have literally picked a better band? Like, that band basically is the Beatles. Almost everything that Huey Lewis and the News did is very. If the Beatles didn't exist, Huey Lewis and the News doesn't exist.
You think so?
You know what I mean? It's not like Huey Lewis and the News is Daft Punk. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I got you. Yes,
obviously, Huey Lewis and the News is obviously it's doing a lot of things the Beatles did. It's derivative, so to speak, as a lot of rock music was derivative once the Beatles did it first. So how do you like Huey Lewis and the News and not like the Beatles?
I think he just
that's a conundrum.
Questionable taste. At least he didn't say the Beatles suck. He just said I didn't like them.
No, but when you say the Beatles suck, you sound like a hipster doofus.
Yeah. Well,
because you just want to be different.
You're right.
But when you say
bullshit.
But when you say I don't really connect, I don't really get it. Like, you don't get it? You don't get the Beatles? How do you not get them? That's worse than saying they suck. At least if you say you suck, you're like, you're saying they suck because you like techno music, so the Beatles suck. But to say you don't understand the Beatles, or you don't really see why people love them so much, that's all right. We're being very tangential here, but
yeah, super tangential. But a Beatles tangent, it's not the worst. Not the worst.
No, it is not.
But Blade Runner, I agree with you. It's like a perfect sci-fi flick. And just as a side note, the speech at the end of the movie, Rutger Hauer, Roy Batty, not only is one of the coolest monologues ever, but it was, I believe, ad-libbed. And that's fucking awesome.
You are half right, but I knew where you were going here. It wasn't 100% ad-libbed, but he completely rewrote it. So it might as well have been ad-libbed. Yeah, and it is, and it's great. And I did look up once the original way it was originally written.
Okay.
And what Rutger Hauer did was absolutely way better.
Oh, that's it's great.
It was absolutely way
it's
better.
It speaks to the quality of the film that, like, you get a guy like Rutger Hauer, and then he was able to easily just say, he was given good stuff and he made it better. It was like, it's like an artist given a great instrument makes great music.
Absolutely. All right, our last film for part 1 is The Dark Crystal from 1982. Budget? Oh, God.
Oh, boy.
Oh, God. There he is.
Love it. Hey, dude, come on. Gotta have
hold
there
on.
as a chancellor. I always get it, the chancellor or the ambassador. I always fuck that up. But you know how he is.
Oh, of the Skeksis dude?
Yeah, the guy, yeah.
Yeah, that guy, yeah. Budget $15 million, box office $41.4 million. That's a huge success.
Oh, yeah.
For those of you who don't know this film, it's a puppet movie made by Jim Henson.
Creature Shop, yep. All of it was the Jim Henson's Creature Shop.
Well, they wrote it, and it was 100% them.
Oh, all of them. Oh, all right.
They did the whole thing.
Nice.
Your cast is, Dave Goelz, who's probably better known as Gonzo, and Jim Henson, who's probably better known as Kermit the Frog, Frank Oz.
Who's known as everybody, right?
Oh, well, Frank Oz,
the
Yoda, Grover.
The Chamberlain. That's...
The Chamberlain. That's exactly... Yeah, exactly. So it's a puppet movie. I think it's a kid's movie. Oh, the Rotten Tomato score was 79%, so it's not great. I'll come right out and say it.
No, at that 79's like mediocre.
Here's the deal.
Right?
If it's a kid's movie, it's a good movie. If it's made for adults, it sucks.
Listen, that movie, it's a dark movie, and I'm not just saying that because that's in the title. It's pretty messed up. I remember seeing some of the scenes as a kid and being like, "Ooh, I don't know how I feel about this."
It's a bit creepy. There's some creepy stuff going on in it.
Yeah.
I think it's a well-made film. I love the creature design. I love the puppet design. I love the puppet performance. I love, the music is good. So I'm saying it's a fun movie. You could turn the volume off and enjoy this film. With the volume on, the script does nothing. There's really no storyline. It's just let's have some fun in kind of a fantasy world.
You know what?
Let's show the world what we could do with puppets and impress people on our filmmaking abilities, which it does. But other than that, I don't think. Again, I love the film. Again, I love all the films on this list. But I think in general, and let me put it this way, and I think I had said this once to you before. I put this film on. It was on Netflix because I love it, and I wanted my wife to watch it. And we got about 10 minutes into this, and she's like, "What the fuck is this piece of what? Turn this the fuck off!"
Wow.
And in all fairness,
wow,
my wife loves sci-fi, fantasy. She's a huge Lord of the Rings fan. She loves Lord of the Rings. So here's someone who loves the shit out of the Lord of the Rings movies, and 10 minutes into Dark Crystal, she's like, "Can you please just shut this the fuck off?"
Well, I mean, Dark Crystal is Lord of the Rings. It isn't. You know what I mean? Like,
I know, but I'm just saying my wife likes that genre. Like, oh, your wife didn't like it because she's into fucking
rom-com crap,
right?
But she's
exactly.
not. Yeah,
right.
I mean, I think you said something that I can definitely relate to. I mean, if you just take a look at it from a visual perspective, and the puppeteering, super impressive, right? Very, very cool. Everything looks awesome, right? I expect nothing less from the Jim Henson Creature Shop. One of my favorite TV series of all time, Farscape. Jim Henson.
But here's the thing.
Amazing.
Here's the thing that you said.
The script, it sucks.
Well, here's the thing that you've said many times about why you like certain films. And you've said to me many times, oh, this film is good, isn't good, whatever, but I like the world building that they do.
Hell yes. I'm a sucker for it. Sucker for world building.
There's no world building in this.
It is a little hollow. It's like they tease you, and I think it's because it's a kids movie, right? Going back to what you said before. So you
keep saying it is and it isn't. You keep waffling on that. But here's the funny thing. I watched the entire. I don't know if you did, but I watched the entire Dark Crystal TV series, season 1 that came out a while ago.
Not yet.
And okay, you need to watch it because guess what? They do all the world building. I mean,
see, perfect. The missing piece.
There's
beautiful.
There's different the Gelflings.
Yeah.
Because this takes place in a different time period.
Oh, it's like they're there, right? They're not like an extinct species.
Not only they're there, but there's like 7 or 8 different clans of Gelflings with their own sort of mythology and history, and you've got this clan of Gelflings that lives underground, and they feel like this, and then there's another clan of Gelflings that's like, it's very Lord of the Ringsy, where like they're like hunter gatherers, and then this one's more mystical.
Dude, it's like I'm 10 again. Like, this is great. I'm definitely. Oh,
it's good, and they dig into the whole detail of how the Skeksis sort of manipulate the Gelflings and all this politics, like Deep Space Nine almost. There's like all this politics and you would love the series. You got to watch it. You would love it.
You just use those 3 little words that is going to get me to watch anything.
But that was the whole thing. This is what the movie should have been, but it wasn't for whatever reason. I get it, but they explored all that in the series, and it was great.
That's what you get when you adapt something for a TV series. You have the time and the bandwidth to world build, right? If something doesn't need world build,
absolutely,
then screw it.
Absolutely. We got to mention the one story. So Dark Crystal,
absolutely.
I would say, what was it? I don't know. This was like maybe 10 years ago.
This is probably about 10 years ago. Maybe even before then. Maybe 12, 13 years ago.
Right. So at this local, this was like the
Huntington like Playhouse
Arts Center. Yeah. There's this art house movie theater in Huntington, Long Island, near where we live. And they play a lot of like independent films and
the week before it was like a Flash Gordon and something else double feature. It was like Flash Gordon and Crawl or something, like double feature.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do weekends where they show like just fun films, but they also show a lot of art house and independent films. But yeah, but it's more than just a movie. So here they were showing The Dark Crystal, and then afterwards they had a Q&A with Dave Goelz, again, who everybody knows more as the voice and puppeteer behind Gonzo from the Muppets. But he did a whole Q&A where he talked about behind the scenes and people asked him questions. And then, as usually what happens when geeks gather, there's always one or two.
Oh, man.
This dude gets up, we think, to ask a question to Dave Goelz, but it turns out... Say it, Kev, tell him.
He gets up and he doesn't really waste that much time, but he slides in a pitch to like a screenplay or something that he wrote, and just the cringe factor was he said
cringy. He had it on him. He wrote a sequel to Dark Crystal.
He stood up and he had it in his hands in front of him,
and he's literally using the Q&A session to pitch Dave Goelz on his sequel to Dark Crystal, and people are you could hear just the group the whole theater rolled its eyes at the same time.
All you could hear is just some minor shifting in seats and just eye rolling. Oh, so cringy.
I was just thinking it'd be funny if that dude listens to this podcast.
Yeah,
I know we have 8. We have 8.
You asshole.
We have 8 listeners. We have 8 listeners, and he's one. He's like, fuck you. We just like our ratings dip.
Yeah. That was I like that because not only did we get to see, I hadn't seen Dark Crystal in a long time at that point, but he did that Q&A afterwards, and there was some pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I love little events like that.
Yeah.
All right, so bottom line, I'm saying Dark Crystal's a bad movie. Which way are you leaning?
I'm kind of middle of the road with this because I don't really know. I think it's a kids movie, but it's got the complexity of a kids movie, but it's got like the ambition of like an adult, like something more adult. So I don't really know. I'm kind of middle of the road on this. I'd say it's mediocre. It's missing the pieces of like I feel like the TV show is going to fill in a lot of the missing pieces.
Oh, it definitely does.
You know,
but
again, a lot of nostalgia here. If it was based purely on nostalgia, absolutely. But like, as far as like actual quality goes, I don't know. I'm middle of the road. I'm like 50-50 on this.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was the last film for this session of part 1. Let us guys know. That was a horrible sentence.
Yeah. No, but
please let us know.
Words.
If you're watching this on YouTube or listening on YouTube, let us know in the comments what you think. If we were right, if we were wrong, what you think, what you like.
Yeah, let us know. Totally.
And again, in the comments, if you're listening on YouTube, we have this as a traditional podcast, blah, 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 blah. However you find us, we're figuring this out. But if you like it, please like us and do all that good stuff. Subscribe and like us and what all the shit that people say when they do these things. And and hopefully in, I don't know, maybe in another couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, we'll post part 2. I think we have another 8 films for the second half of the 80s that we'll cover in part 2 to finish this out. But I think that wraps it up for this time.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any final thoughts?
No, I think we're. I think I said all that I wanted to say. Again, if you guys like what you hear, give us a like. Let us know in the comments, and we'll do more of the same.
Exactly, and also if you have any topics you want us to discuss, you can also throw your ideas in there. If we like it, we'll cover it.
And if we missed any movies or anything like that, I mean, I'm pretty sure we got a lot of the big ones. But let us know.
All right, cool. All right, that's it. So again, I'm Glenn.
And I'm Kevin.
And we were 2 reasonable guys. We'll see you next time.
Hopefully. Yeah. See you guys. Take care.